Alright, so this lesson we're going to do multiplying and dividing decimals by 10, 100, 1,000, etc. It's going to be a short lesson. The concept is quite easy, and I'm pretty sure everyone can get it really easily. Firstly, you need to understand that every number contain a decimal point, but sometimes they don't really show any integers. Alright, so for example, that if we have 451, that's an integer. It's a whole number here. But doesn't mean that this number does not have a decimal point. This number is actually equivalent to 451.0. Okay, it does have a decimal point here. It is a very important concept because later you need to use this concept here to multiply or divide a decimal number by 10, 100, 1,000. All right, so every number contains a decimal point. Very important. And then extra zeros can be added to the column in the columns to the right of decimal point without changing the value of the decimals. In the later stage, you will learn that the degree of accuracy will be slightly different, but we are not going to talk about here. So we're just going to assume by adding zeros at the end of a decimal point is not going to change the value of the decimal numbers. Alright, it must be to the right of the decimal point. Okay, without changing the value of the decimals. So that means, for example, the previous question, 451 is actually equivalent to 451.0 and is equal to 451.00 and is equal to 451.000, and goes on, right? Okay, so once you understand this important concept here, then we now can multiply and dividing decimals by 10, 100, and 1,000. All right, so what we need to do is think about this, all right? If we're multiplying decimals, okay, by 10, 100, 1,000, and it keeps going, we basically move the decimal point. We're moving the decimal point to the right by the number of places, depends on how many zeros you have. Okay, so I'd like to show you. So for example, if we multiply by 10, and then as you can see here, that's 1 0. So that means it's equivalent to move the decimal point to the right, by 1 place. All right, if it's multiplied by 100, then you just count how many zeros. We'll have 2 zeros, and in that case, we're just going to move the decimal point to the right by 2 places. So it's just going to be this pattern, all right? If you times by 1,000, all right, it's just going to move the decimal point to the right by 3 places. All right, so the most important thing is, firstly, this is to the right if it's multiply, and then the number of places to the right depends on how many zeros we have, all right, when you multiply the numbers there. Okay, so if we are dividing, if we're dividing by 10 or if we're dividing by 100, in this case, again, this is 1 0, but the only difference is we are moving the decimal point instead of to the right, but this time is to the left, all right, by 1 place. The reason it's 1 place is because this time is still divided by 10. It's 1 0, so therefore you move it to the left by 1 unit. All right, usually we can use the visualization method to actually visualize, all right? And all right, we'll start with some questions so you understand what I'm talking about. So if we have 143.781, and we need to multiply this number by 10. All right, so what is the quickest way to do it? All right, all you have to do here is think about, I'm just going to enlarge this so everyone can see it. And now I just wanted to think about, here's the decimal point here, right? Hopefully, all right, here's the decimal point. And then we need to times by 10, all right? And 10 has 1 0. That means we need to move the decimal point one place to the right. So now the new decimal point will be here. So that's the idea, all right? We're going to move that decimal point one place to the right, and that becomes new decimal point, okay? And then the answer will be 1,000. All right, I'm just using a different color. 1,437.81. That's what you do, okay? It's really easy, very, very, very easy. Simply move the decimal point one place to the right, okay? All right, how about this one? Let's do another one here. How about a question that's, this time, let's just say we've got 5.6 and we need to multiply by, that number here. All right, 100,000. So what do we do in this case? When you're dealing with a question like this, I will suggest you to increase the number of zeros at the end of the decimal number. All right, so for example, for this 5.6, what I want to do is I'm just going to add more zeros. Okay, it doesn't really matter how many zeros you add. All right, it does depend on how many zeros you're timesing, but at this stage, because you don't really know how many zeros you want to add, all right, so it doesn't really matter. And then you count the number of zeros. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 zeros, which means we're going to move the decimal point. This decimal point. Oh, what's happening here? Oops. 5 points. Okay, we're going to move that decimal point 5 places to the right. Okay, so that becomes new decimal point. And that's what I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter if you have an extra zeros at the end, which you don't need to use it. So you can create more zeros if you want. All right, so that gives you, all right, if we move, all right, the decimal point 5 places, all right, to the right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that will be the new decimal point. With all the zeros at the end, you can just cross out. You don't need those zeros, all right? And then you can write your final answer after you finish that. It will be 5, 6, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that becomes the answer will be 560,000. All right, that's how you do it if you multiply by a larger number. All right, so what do we do if we have if we're dividing a number by 10 or 100,000? As I said before, it's just going to be the opposite. Instead of moving to the right, this time we're going to move the numbers, the decimal point to the left. All right, so for the first question, we've got 14.71. All right, if we divide this number by 10, okay, so let's just look at decimal points. We're going to move that decimal point 1 unit to the left, and that gives you 1.471. And that's all. Okay, pretty easy. All right, now I do want to show you questions where what happens if we are dividing like a number that has many zeros. What do we do in this case? And how do we do the questions? All right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to move the decimal points 4 places to the right, okay? So I'd like everyone to the left. So I'd like everyone just pay attention to that, okay? 1, that's the decimal point. 1, that's the first point. 2, so the decimal point will be here now, all right? And then 3, imagine you've got a 3 and 4. So that will be a new decimal point. Now here comes the question, right? How do we write the numbers? What do we do in this case? All right, if that's the decimal point, obviously you need to know that we have a zeros that we need to put right in the front. And then what you need to do is you are going to put the zeros right here. Then the question is, all right, how many zeros do I need to put? Do I put 3 zeros? Do I put 4 zeros? What do we do, all right? How many zeros do I need to put? And that's going to be an interesting question, right? What do we do in this case? There are a couple of ways you can do it. What I normally do is I put the zeros on top of the arrow, the arrow, okay? So that gives you 1 and 2. So then if you recount, so that becomes, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 places to the right, which is 4 zeros there. So what I'm going to do is lining up with the arrows with the zeros, okay? So you know how many zeros you need to put there. Okay, I hope that's a bit easier for you to understand. And the last arrows point towards the point. And then the first two arrows point towards the zeros, so you know how many zeros you need to put in front of the numbers. Alright, so for example, this answer will be just equal to 0.00176. Alright, I'd like to do a few more. I always like the numbers now you're dividing by, many zeros, okay? So let's just do 2.3 divided by 100,000. Okay, what do we do in this case? All right, so this is what you can write. All right, you can write 2.3, and then you can write. You can actually physically write on the time that you move the decimal point. So we can move the decimal point how many places? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There will be a point here. All right, now remember what I said before about putting zeros. You're going to put zeros here, and you're going to put zeros on top of each arrow. That'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that way you can write your final answer, and it's equal to 0.000023. Okay, and this is the best way to actually, work out how many zeros you need to have right in front of the number. Okay, that's how you divide a decimal number by, by 10, by 100, by, 1,000. It's pretty easy. Just definitely you need to practice the skills, all right? But it's quite easy to understand about, how many places. It's straightforward. The only difficult part is just the division. It takes a bit of time because you need to count at the decimal points. You need to count how many zeros you can see there. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. Thank you.